Part 31. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, De Chuan-Chi. Chapter 302. But when Yejuju slipped to the ground, the two of them saw Yejuju's appearance clearly. The two of them couldn't help but be startled at the same time, looking at Yejuju in disbelief. Yes. Both of them were shocked by Yejuju's appearance and age. There's nothing I can do about it. Why does Yejuju look so young despite being an Asian? Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Yejuju shrugged his shoulders and said, "Hello, General Quan, it's an honor to meet you." After saying that, he looked at Maisie, who had the same blank look on his face, and said, "I think this beautiful lady must be Miss Maisie, right?" When asked by Yejuju, Maisie nodded numbly and said, "Yes, I am Asako Mori. Can you tell us, what's your name? How old are you and where are you from?" "Oh. I'm sorry, my name is Yejuju, I am a Chinese American, I am 16 years old, and I come to Manhattan, New York." Yejuju first introduced his origin, and then continued. "I'm here because in the United States, there are almost no hunter schools, and I don't think the crisis on the Earth has been completely resolved. The Earth still needs hunters and mecha pilots." After speaking, Yejuju reached out and patted the general standing quietly beside him, and continued with pretense of regret. "I have been interested in mecha manufacturing and piloting since I was a child, but it's a pity. My resources are limited and I can only make such a big mecha. You are experts in this field. Of course you know that such a large mecha has no chance of defeating monsters. So I'm here. I just want to join Magnolia Base, participate in hunter training, become an official hunter, and contribute to future monster invasions." Hearing this, General Quan and Maisie nodded in unison, but there was no longer any joyful emotion on their faces. Of course Yejuju knew that the reason why the two of them were like this was to take responsibility for the base. As the top commander of the base, naturally he would not easily believe his words and accept him as a student. But Yejuju also knew that even so, the two of them would not let him leave. They just wanted to use all their connections to investigate their origins. Yejuju is not worried at all about this. Not to mention that the system had already made impeccable arrangements for him after he came here. Even if there is no system, with the presence of the Red Queen, it is possible to forge information that can be faked. Sure enough, the two were silent for 10 seconds before General Quan spoke. "Our hunter school welcomes all capable and courageous hunter students to join the base, and we welcome you with both hands. So, with the authority of the base's supreme commander, I temporarily accept you to join Yulon base. But before that, you couldn't move around the base at will after all." Seeing that General Quan was hesitant to speak, Yejuju didn't understand, so he spoke directly. "I understand. I will stay at the place you arranged and won't go anywhere until you officially accept me." Hearing this, General Quan and Maisie had a flash of surprise in their eyes at the same time, and their affection for Yejuju rose to another level. "Okay. Come with us, someone will come to bring your mecha back to the base." General Quan also simply said after hearing this, and then added another sentence as if he remembered something. "Don't worry, we won't touch your mecha. You can see him at any time." After saying that, General Quan and Maisie escorted Yejuju into the Humvee one after another. Yejuju didn't say anything, just got into the Hummer and sat in the back seat. Although he hasn't received a notification from the system to complete the mission, Yejuju is not worried at all. As long as General Quan and the others investigate him and join the hunter school based on their own strength, it will be a simple matter. After returning to the base, Yejuju was arranged into a room. A woman in charge of receiving Yejuju told Yejuju that it was best not to walk around the base except during meal times. Yejuju nodded indifferently and lay down on the bed, pretending not to go anywhere. In the base, A group of hunters, students, and staff all gathered around the general. Several engineers climbed into the general's cab. After seeing the configuration in the cab, they all exclaimed, "Nothing else." In fact, although the configuration in this cab is complete, it lacks one major accessory. That is, special armor and a special helmet that can carry out neural connections. The neural connection of this mecha was actually only connected through a simple helmet, which really surprised them. You must know that among the mechas in the base, which one does not use special armor and helmets to be connected to the mecha for driving? Just like this, isn't every student able to successfully integrate into the spirit and fly a mecha? Not to mention, there are even fewer hunters who drive mechas who can control their arms and fingers as well as Yejuju. Not to mention, when a hunter got permission to enter the cab and tried to start the mecha, he got a ruthless mechanical sound prompt. Insufficient authority, unable to connect nerves to start driving the mecha. This result immediately caused an uproar among everyone. Unexpectedly, really unexpectedly. This mecha actually has the function of recognizing the master. Except for Yejuju, no one can drive it. When all the information was reported to General Quan and Ma Zi, the two looked at each other in silence, but they felt that this time they had found a treasure. However, Yejuju stayed in the room except for eating, and did not go anywhere. 2 days later, the results of the investigation were sent back to the base. After seeing all the information about Yejuju from the investigation, General Quan and Ma Zi no longer doubted Yejuju. Nothing else. Innocent, extremely innocent. The communication was also very simple. In addition to manufacturing and learning mecha knowledge and manufacturing mecha, there was no communication with anyone. After getting the results they wanted, the two came to Yejuju's room without hesitation. Seeing the two of them coming together, Yejuju stood up from the bed neatly and said to them, "It seems that you have investigated me clearly. Then, can I join the hunter school and become a mecha pilot?" Hearing this, General Quan looked at Yejuju with some embarrassment, but Ma Zi couldn't bear it and said, "Yeah, you can join the hunter school, but it is not so easy to become a mecha pilot. You still need to study systematically." After the voice fell, the system voice finally sounded. "Congratulations to the host for completing the world mission. Please go to the Hunter School and successfully join the Hunter School as a preparatory Hunter student, and reward 5,000 experience. Tip: the host's level has been upgraded. The current level is 29. Strength and physical strength are increased by 5 each, intelligence, spirit, and agility are increased by 1 each, which has been automatically assigned to the attribute panel. Please check the details by yourself. Subsequent task triggering. Become the most outstanding student among the students of the same period, get the opportunity to drive a mecha alone, reward 10,000 experience, and a special reward once. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, De Chuanqi. Chapter 303. Wow! The surprise came so quickly. Yejuju was really surprised by the follow-up mission. Special reward. I still remember that the last special reward was that I got a mechanical 2-headed dragon, a mechanical 3-headed dog, and now the general. So, what will be the special reward this time? So looking forward to it. Alright. Yejuju was distracted and thought that Yejuju was dissatisfied with the arrangements of the base. Mesa was afraid that this good mecha pilot would be dissatisfied because of this, so he hurriedly explained. Yeah. You should know that every mecha pilot must undergo systematic training before being allowed to board a mecha and drive. Although there is no doubt about your ability. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Hearing this, Yejuju knew that the two had misunderstood him, and hurriedly answered. No, I have no objection at all. I agree to enter the student class for systematic training. Ah! When Meza, who was looking for words to persuade Yejuju, heard this, he couldn't help but reacted immediately, with a smile on his face and said, "I'm glad you understand. Then we'll take you to the student dormitory." After saying that, Maisie and General Quan took Yejeju to the student dormitory in person. Along the way, Yejeju had time to take a formal look at the environment in the base. After leaving the room, you enter a huge hall. I have to say, this hall is really big. Not to mention the width, which is the size of several football fields, but also the height of 100 meters, which cannot be easily built in other worlds. The mechas parked in their respective positions gave Yejeju a great sense of novelty. Even though he has experienced 4 worlds, each of which has its own advantages and disadvantages in technology, this is the first time Yejeju has seen such a large mecha up close. At this time, parked in the base were several mechas that Yejeju was very familiar with in the show, including the 6th generation mecha hunter Revenge Wanderer is 77 meters tall and weighs 2004 tons. It is driven by 2 people and equipped with elbow rockets, chain swords, elastic slingshots, and L-22 plasma cannons. Standing 91 meters tall and weighing 2,128 tons, the 5th generation Mecha Hunter and Phoenix Ranger are driven by 3 people and powered by X-19 super battery power, equipped with 4 neck rockets and 4 vortex railguns. He is 81 meters tall and weighs 1,628 tons. 2 people drive the 6th generation Mecha Hunter and Saber Athena, which are driven by super rotating turbines and equipped with ion double-edged swords. Standing 15 meters tall and weighing 1975 tons, the 2-person pilot is a 6th generation Mecha Hunter and application protector powered by T-22 Tesla electricity and equipped with an LEC-16 arc whip. There was also Winter Ajax, who was defeated by Yejeju the day before yesterday. In addition, there should be 2 mechas, the Brave Omega and the Redeemer Titan, but they were not seen in the base. Come to think of it, these 2 mechas have been ordered to patrol the sea. When the 3 of them walked through the hall and arrived at the student dormitory, they saw Nathan Lambert, the pilot of the Revenge Wanderer, lecturing the students in the dormitory. Yejeju naturally knew that Nathan Lambert was one of the teachers of the current students, and he would inevitably have to deal with him a lot in the future. After entering the dormitory, the students stood at attention and saluted General Quan and Maisie under the command of Nathan Lambert. General Quan glanced at all the young students present with satisfaction, and then lectured. "Very well, young people, you are the future of mankind and the last hope of mankind to protect the earth, so I ask you to love each other, train hard, and strive to become qualified mecha pilots as soon as possible." "Yes, sir." All the students responded in unison and loudly. General Quan nodded with satisfaction and continued. "Today, our student class welcomed a new student, Yejeju, a Chinese from the United States. You can call him Ye." After speaking, General Quan turned his head and motioned for Yejeju to come forward. Yejeju walked forward without any pressure, nodded to the students present, and said, "I am very happy to be a member of the Hunter training class. Please give me your advice." After saying that, Yejeju walked to the end of the queue, where there happened to be an empty bed. Next to Yejeju is the young student in the play, Wang Jinhai, who came to China and later drove the Phoenix Ranger in the play. This is a very enthusiastic young man, not to mention that Yejeju is also of Chinese descent. Wang Jinhai winked at Yejeju in a friendly manner. After Yejeju returned to the team, General Quan and Maisie signaled Nathan to continue, then turned and left the student dormitory. As soon as the 2 left, Nathan turned around and looked at everyone seriously, especially Yejeju, who looked at him for a long time. Yejeju was stared at by his eyes, but he remained unmoved. He stood upright and stared straight ahead. Nathan was surprised. He didn't expect Yejeju to be so calm, and he couldn't help but have a flash of appreciation in his eyes. Then, Nathan's face became serious and he said to everyone, "Okay, change into training clothes in 3 minutes, everyone go to the fighting training room and start fighting training. After speaking, Anson raised his wrist and looked at the watch on his wrist. Yejuju took action immediately after hearing the sound. He was self-aware. What he did the day before yesterday must have made many people dislike him and offended many people in the base. Especially those old mecha pilots will definitely look for opportunities to cause trouble for themselves. He wasn't afraid of other things, but he didn't want these old hunters to make things difficult for him in these small details. Wang Jinhai was quickly changing into training clothes. While putting on his clothes, Wang Jinhai said to Yejuju, "Hello, yeah, my name is Wang Jinhai, from China. Nice to meet you." "Hello, Wang, I'm new here. Please take good care of me in the future." Yejuju still quickly put on his training clothes and answered without raising his head. Wang Jinhai, however, stayed silent and said, "Yeah, your move the day before yesterday was really amazing. You don't know, but you surprised many people. But, hee. Just because of this, you have offended a lot of people, so be careful later." Having put on his training clothes, Yejuju raised his head and glanced at Wang Jinhai, who was a few centimeters taller than him, and said confidently, "I continue with normal training, but you can't deliberately find fault with me, otherwise I will teach them how to behave with my fists." "Wow. Yeah, you are very confident." After he finished speaking, a young man beside him spoke. Yejuju heard the sound and looked over, but he recognized the young man at a glance as Suresh, who drove the heroic protector in the play. Yejuju still had a good impression of this boy, at least much better than Vico, who disliked everyone. Not wanting to appear out of place, Yejuju nodded to Suresh and said, "Of course, I did a lot of homework before coming here. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, De Chuanqi. Chapter 304. While the three of them were talking, Nathan shouted sternly, "Are you all free? Those who have changed their clothes should stand in their respective positions. When the time is up, gather and head to the fighting training room." Hearing this, Wang Jinhai and Suresh blinked at Yejuju. Each stood in the aisle in the middle of the dormitory, lined up and walked to the combat training room. ... Colon. When everyone came to the fighting training, Yejuju saw several old hunters boringly hitting sandbags in the training room, as expected. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. When everyone entered the fighting room, all the old hunters stopped moving and looked at the team of students. Wang Jinhai tilted his head and whispered in Yejuju's ear, "Look, yeah, you're in trouble." Suresh, who was standing behind Yejuju, also whispered, "Wow, yeah, your welcome ceremony is very special. Be careful not to get knocked down by them." Haha. Hearing this, Yejuju didn't speak, but the corners of his mouth turned up slightly, giving him a meaningful smile, which disappeared in the blink of an eye. Yejuju thought very simply, since the task required him to become the most outstanding student, then let's establish our authority in the combat training room. When Nathan saw a group of old hunters waiting here, he knew something was wrong and wanted to stop them from beating Yejuju, so he said, "Donaldson, what are you doing here?" After hearing this, Donaldson said on behalf of all the old hunters, "Oh, isn't it because it's too hard for you to train students by yourself? We are here to help you." After he finished speaking, all the old hunters behind him started to boo, leaving Nathan speechless. Of course he knew that the reason why these veterans said this was not to target other students, but to find an opportunity to teach Yejuju a lesson. This made him very embarrassed. To be honest, he was very optimistic about Yejuju. Not only because Yejuju piloted a mecha alone yesterday and defeated two old hunters piloting Winter Ajax, but through Yejuju's previous performance in the student dormitory, he saw that Yejuju was born to be a hunter-warrior. He didn't want Yejuju to be hit by these old hunters, but he had to let these old hunters who had been frustrated for several days vent their anger. Just when he was in a dilemma, he suddenly saw Maisie and General Quan standing on the second floor of the fighting room, watching the excitement. Quite unexpectedly, Nathan saw interest in their eyes. Yes. It's just interest. This time, Nathan no longer hesitated and simply said to the students behind him, "You are really lucky today. Having these seniors to guide you will benefit you a lot." After saying that, Nathan turned back and asked the students to sit down at the edge of the fighting arena one by one. He also asked those students who had the courage and interest to ask the old hunters for advice to come forward and compete with the old hunters on their fighting skills. Unsurprisingly, the first one to step forward was Viko, who came to Russia. This girl has the most aggressive temper and is the most daring to fight. When given the opportunity to ask for advice from her seniors, she jumped in first without hesitation. Seeing that Viko was the first to come forward, Wang Jinhai tilted his head and said in Yejuju's ear, "Look, it's Viko again, she's such an impulsive girl, look, this time it's his fault. Those old hunters will not show mercy." Sure enough, as soon as he finished speaking, Viko shouted "Ah" and rushed towards the old hunter on the field with his hands in a fighting posture. Unfortunately, although his momentum was strong, his strength was not. Both his fighting skills and his own strength were far behind. After just 3 fights, he was beaten to the ground by this old hunter. After beating Viko down, the old hunter looked arrogantly at the students sitting aside and mocked loudly. "Who's coming next?" As he spoke, he looked at Yejuju with a blatant and provocative look. Now, no matter how stupid you are, you know that these old hunters are here for Yejuju. Naturally, no student is willing to take the lead and take the lead. Seeing that Yejuju had no intention of accepting the challenge, the sarcasm on the old hunter's face became even more obvious, and he almost called him by name and said, "Why, you have so little courage that you don't even dare to challenge us. How can you fight against the monsters invading the Earth in the future? Hee. Didn't some of you use despicable means to defeat our mechas the day before yesterday? Come on, fight me one-on-one." Hearing this, Yejuju knew that he could no longer be alone, so he had to slowly stand up from the ground and said, "I'll fight you." After saying that, Yejuju glanced at Maisie and General Quan, who were standing on the second floor watching the excitement, and then slowly walked into the fighting arena. Seeing the target coming out, the old hunter chuckled and squeezed his hands together to make a click-click sound. Yejuju walked to stand 2 meters away from him. He stopped putting on any fighting airs. He raised his right hand and gave him a contemptuous hook and said, "Come on, don't you want to beat me? I'll give you a chance, let's see if you can defeat me." Such contemptuous actions and words immediately made the old hunter furious, and he no longer pretended to teach the younger ones. "Ah!" With a loud roar, he rushed towards Yejuju. Yejuju stood there in a confused manner, not even looking at him straight in the eye. There was no way. Although the big man was huge and powerful, his movements when he rushed over were seen by Yejuju, a mid-level combat master. There were flaws everywhere. He could avoid his collision with any dodging, and could defeat the big man with any punch. Sure enough, with a bang, the strong man rushed fast and flew back even faster. It was when Yejuju rushed in front of him and punched him in the cheek. He turned his head sideways to avoid his punch, and with his right hand, he placed his palm on his chin at lightning speed. Yejuju's strength was so great that even without exerting any force, he still knocked the big man's body high up, and he flew back 2 or 3 meters before falling to the floor, and then slid on the floor for several meters before he barely stopped. Unfortunately, although the man stopped, he had already fainted. Wow! Exclamations came one after another, mixed with the sound of hissing of people sucking in cold air. The students kneeling at the edge of the field couldn't help but exclaim, and the old hunters all gasped in shock. Even General Quan and Ma Zi, who were standing on the second floor watching the battle, had black lines on their heads, and General Quan couldn't help but twitching his facial muscles slightly. The two knew that Yejiju's fighting skills must be very strong when he fought against Winter Ajax the day before yesterday, but they didn't expect it to be so strong. That's a formal hunter-warrior. Even though he hasn't had the opportunity to fight monsters in these years, his usual fighting training is not vague at all. Being coded by Yejiju in one move, how can those old hunters have the face to teach Yejiju a lesson? Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, De Chuanqi. Chapter 305. Until then, Yejiju slowly retracted his palm, looked at the group of old hunters blankly, and said slowly. That's it? Still a hunter-warrior? You can't even defeat me, how can you defeat those monsters? It's not that I underestimate you, it's just a matter of time if you all come together. Well, if you want to teach me a lesson, let's come together. An angry roar sounded in the training room, but the old hunters opposite who were still in a daze were angered by Yejiju's provocative words. Donaldson, who was taking the lead, was already roaring and rushing towards Yejiju with his face flushed. Donaldson! Several exclamations sounded behind him, and then several old hunters had to rush forward. There was no way, Yejiju's fighting prowess shocked these old hunters, and they knew that if Donaldson rushed up alone, he would be beaten down within 2 rounds. Since everyone came here because they wanted to teach Yejiju a lesson, they naturally didn't want to see Donaldson get beaten instead of trying to beat someone, so they had no choice but to follow him shamelessly. Besides, isn't Yejiju a big talker? Does he want to beat them all? If not, what are you waiting for? Seeing a large group of old hunters all rushing forward, the students who were kneeling on the edge of the field could no longer remain calm. Although they didn't rush to help Yejiju fight, they all stood up and gathered around the field to cheer for Yejiju. After all, even if Yejiju comes late, he is still a student. He is one of them and represents the students. At this time, even if you can't go on the field to help fight, you can cheer for Yejiju with the same enemy. Suddenly, enthusiastic shouts of "Come on, beat them up" came from the fighting training room, attracting all the staff nearby the fighting training room. After a while, the large combat training room was filled with people. When they saw that it was the students fighting against the old hunter warriors, especially when Yejiju, who had defeated Ajax in the winter in a mecha alone the day before yesterday, and when he single-handedly challenged almost 10 old hunters, everyone was divided into 2 groups. Some cheered for the old hunters, and naturally some cheered for Yejiju. In the field, Yejiju moved nimbly among the old hunters, punching or kicking him from time to time. As for the old hunters, from time to time, some of them would be staggered back by Yejiju's punches and kicks. This is because Yejiju didn't use all his strength, and he was under siege, so his power control was not so accurate. In order to avoid being unable to hold back and severely injuring them, naturally the smaller the strength, the better. Otherwise, someone would have been knocked unconscious and died on the ground like the previous hunter. But even this was an eye-opener for everyone watching. It's so exciting. In the past, we could only see the scene of one person beating 10 people in movies. Today, we finally saw it in reality. How can we not make everyone excited? Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Especially Suresh, who shouted excitedly and asked Wang Jinhai. Wow, Wang, is this your Chinese Kung Fu? It's so amazing. While Wang Jinhai was cheering, he was also confused in his heart, and he couldn't help but say perfunctorily. Yes. Bar. He can become a hunter student not only because he has met the mental strength standards, but also because he has been exposed to Chinese martial arts and fighting. But looking at Yejiju's fighting, I didn't understand it very well, but I felt it was very powerful inexplicably. How did he know that Yejuju's fighting got out of the system? It is a fighting technique that systematically combines Chinese martial arts, Sanda, Taekwondo, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Jeet Kune Do, Israeli fighting techniques and other practical boxing techniques. How could he understand it? In short, Yejuju's fighting technique is to defeat the opponent with the simplest and most direct attack method. At first, most of the people stood on the side of the old hunters, cheering and cheering for them. But gradually, as Yejuju was on the field, he received almost no attack, and the old hunters who besieged him were knocked out of the battle circle from time to time. The human mentality of worshipping the strong gradually gained the upper hand. Many people were impressed by Yejuju's strength and willingly cheered for Yejuju. General Quan and Meize, who were standing on the second floor, sighed at the same time. Meize said helplessly, "General, look. Is it still necessary for Ye to participate in training?" "Well, this is just one aspect of fighting, let's take a look at the others." General Quan said helplessly, but he thought helplessly in his heart. With Ye's strength, even taking a simulation class. No problem, right? Then I thought. Since Ye can drive a 30-meter mecha by himself, then. Yes or no? His mental power is also far beyond ordinary people? Meize felt the same way, and she thought more. Thinking of the one-man mecha still in the American base that no one can pilot and control. Yes or no? Can. Let Ye try it? Just when the two were distracted, the winner had already been decided. Hearing the neat shouts of "Yeah, yeah, yeah" below, the two cast their gazes down again, and what they saw was Yejuju stood there indifferently, even without blushing and out of breath, and did not look like he had fought at all. And around him, there were old hunters lying all over. Without exception, they all curled up on the ground, hugging their chests and stomachs, groaning in pain. At this moment, Yejuju suddenly raised his head and looked at the two of them meaningfully. This look made the two of them tremble with fear. The next second, Yejuju retracted his gaze, turned around, raised his right hand to the people cheering for him, and made a victory gesture. This was a big deal, and a group of half-grown teenagers rushed up with cheers. Put Yejuju down, and several teenagers worked together to throw Yejuju high up, catch him, throw him up again, catch him again, and throw him up again. Seeing that Yejuju was so popular, General Quan and Ma Zi looked at each other, smiled at the corners of their mouths, and turned back to the office. Nathan let the students have fun, but looked at the old hunters who were ignored by everyone with sympathy, and sighed helplessly in his heart. After a long while, Nathan still remembered today's training mission, stopped everyone from cheering and celebrating, and dispersed the crowd. He was kind enough to have the old hunters lying on the ground carried to the infirmary. The fighting training room also became quiet. Nathan glanced at Yejuju, who was standing calmly in the queue, and really couldn't say what he was teaching the students to fight. Finally, he looked at Yejuju for help. Yejuju saw the meaning in Nathan's eyes at a glance, and nodded to Nathan calmly. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, De Chuanqi. Chapter 306. After accepting Yejuju's intention, Nathan was overjoyed and said to the students, "Next, let Ye guide everyone in combat training." After speaking, he waved to Yejuju and said, "Yeah, is it okay?" Yejuju said yes, squeezed out from the crowd, stood next to Nathan, and asked the students to come up one by one for individual guidance. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. It has to be said that Yejuju's guidance is very obvious. He can point out the strengths and weaknesses of every student and give reasonable suggestions. Not only did these students receive instruction, but Nathan also benefited a lot. In this way, a few hours of combat training ended, and all the students were taken back to their dormitories. From this moment on, all the students sincerely accepted Yejuju, and invisibly, Yejuju was the leader. Even Vico, who disliked everyone, was not convinced by Yejuju. The next day, I finally started taking simulated computer classes. To be honest, Yejuju was looking forward to this moment. A few days ago, although Yejuju also controlled the general, it was more straightforward to say that it was consciousness over control rather than neural connection. There is no way, the general is his pet and not the mecha of this world. With excitement, under the leadership of Nathan, all the students came to the simulation training room. Coming here, new problems arise. The previous young students have been in the student class for a long time and are already used to each other. In other words, they have already had their own suitable groups and are accustomed to the neural connections and memory impact between each other. But Yejuju was a new student, so it was difficult to find someone to pair him with for training. Seeing groups of students training on the machine, Yejuju smacked his mouth and couldn't help but look at the instructor Nathan on the side. "All right?" Yejuju set his sights on Nathan. After all, compared to the students, he wanted to try pairing up with an official hunter to see what the so-called neural connection was. As for each other seeing each other's memories hidden deep in their minds, Yejuju was not worried at all. With his current mental strength of 31 points, no ordinary person can easily enter his memory and see his secrets. Sure enough, after all the students were on the computer for training, it was Yejuju who walked into the simulation training room alone. After Yejuju picked up the helmet, he said to Nathan, "Instructor Nathan, can you please pair up with me for training?" Me." Nathan, who was named by Yejuju, was stunned for a moment, but then he realized it and wanted to test it out for himself. What was so magical about Yejuju being able to drive a mecha alone? So, Nathan stepped into the simulation training room, made eye contact with Yejuju, picked up the helmet, nodded to Yejuju, and put on the helmet. Yejuju also nodded to Nathan and put on his helmet. Then Nathan and Yejuju started clicking on the screen in front of them at the same time. This step is also a necessary preparation before the neural connection. After a while, Nathan was the first of the two to enter the neural connection. At the same time, Yejuju also saw the memory deep in Nathan's brain. After these memories fast-forwarded to the past, it was Yejuju who started the neural connection. The students outside all looked nervously at the two people in the simulation training room. Nathan also looked at Yejuju nervously, praying in his heart that Yejuju could successfully connect his nerves. But what was strange in his heart was that he couldn't see any memories deep in Yejuju's mind. All he could see was a picture like a starry sky. In this scene, Yejuju used his huge mental power to control the picture that appeared in his mind. Yes. The picture of the starry sky that Nathan saw was what Yejuju took the initiative to reveal. In other words, others cannot control the memory presented when their own neural connections are connected, but Yejuju can. In other words, these current machines cannot suppress Yejuju's mental consciousness and have no effect on him. The first person to notice Yejuju's extremely powerful mental power was Maze, who was in the monitoring room on the other side, testing the two of them with instruments. Looking at the screen, the number showing Yejuju's mental value of 310 was flashing with a dazzling red light. There is only one possibility, and that is that Yejuju's mental power has exploded. To be honest, Maze's whole body was dull. The mental value of 310 is a value that has never appeared before. Even his adoptive father Pentecost, who could pilot a mecha alone back then, only had a mental value of 120. But Yejuju's spiritual value was more than twice theirs. What an outrageous person he was. And what Yejuju's huge spiritual value represents is, as long as Yejuju is willing, he can pilot any mecha in the base without any burden. Thinking of this, Maze's whole body trembled with excitement. To know. Since the first discovery of monsters invading the Earth. After the army's thermal weapons failed, people had no choice but to create mechas to fight the monsters. The first mechas were also controlled by a single pilot. Although the combat effectiveness of a mecha driven alone is indeed much stronger, no matter who drives a mecha alone, nosebleeds occur. Later, after examination, it was found that all these warriors had tumors in their brains. And these tumors, without exception, appeared after the mental load was overloaded. And the same is true for his adoptive father. Later, in order to reduce the burden on mecha pilots, the mecha driving mode had to be changed from single to double or even triple driving. In this way, although the burden on mecha pilots was reduced, the combat effectiveness of mechas was reduced. Because even if two people cooperated tacitly, they would inevitably make mistakes, even twins with a tacit understanding. At the same time, the number of people who can become mecha pilots is getting smaller and smaller. In contrast, it is becoming more and more difficult for mecha pilots to pair up. In this situation, although after 10 years of continuous development, the pairing of mecha pilots is no longer as difficult as before, there are still not many who can pair up. But today, Yejuju, such a strange person, appeared. How could Mazi not be excited? She also saw from Yejuju's mental value and Yejuju's relaxed expression in the surveillance video that Yejuju has no difficulty in matching with other drivers. In other words, Yejuju can not only drive a mecha alone, but also easily match with any mecha driver. Didn't you see that he and Nathan easily connected successfully? Monster. Mazi didn't want to say anything anymore. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan. Chapter 307. Because, in the video, the simulation training has already begun. And Yejuju and his opponents are exactly a level 4 monster. Yejuju recognized this monster at a glance. It is exactly the same monster that appeared in the play and was named Shrikethorn by Herman. Although this monster is only a level 4 monster, it is covered with sharp spikes like blades. It can not only protect the surface of the body, but also has a certain attack ability. If stabbed by these spikes, the spikes can easily pierce the external armor of the mecha. And the most terrifying thing is the two tails of the monster. These two tails are densely packed with spikes, and these spikes can be like a Gatling machine gun, continuously shooting targets. As long as it is hit continuously by the spikes on its tail, even the mecha will not last long, and will eventually be shot with holes, and will be seriously injured if not dead. Facing such a monster, Yejuju's way of dealing with it is also very simple. Can't your tail shoot continuously? Then I will make it impossible for you to shoot, isn't that enough? Nathan has rich experience in simulated combat. The way to deal with such a monster is to attack it from a long distance as much as possible. So, Nathan was about to use the previous method to deal with this monster. But he didn't know that he was horrified to find that he could no longer control the action of the mecha, but was passively led by Yejuju to rush towards the monster with bang bang bang. The monster saw the mecha rushing towards him, and roared ah, and the two tails stood up and aimed at the mecha. Seeing this, Nathan secretly said bad in his heart, and was about to remind Yejuju to dodge and defend. But Yejuju continued to rush towards the monster regardless of anything. When he was more than a meter away from the monster, Yejuju made an action that appeared on the football field, falling to the ground and sliding. The mecha, which was more than 70 meters tall, suddenly lay on its back, and with the inertia generated by the mecha running at high speed, it slid rapidly to the feet of the monster. Above the mecha's head, the sound of swoosh swoosh continued to sound. Nathan saw countless spikes flashing with blue light flying over his head through the screen of the mecha. Before he could scream, the mecha had already slid to the feet of the monster. The monster reacted quickly, and with a strange cry of a whoa, it lowered its head and used the sharp spikes on its head like a blade to hit the mecha on the ground fiercely. Judging from the situation, if the monster's head hit it, the mecha and the two people in it would be killed by the monster. Nathan's face turned pale in an instant because of the monster's attack. Even though he knew that this was a simulated battle, not a battle with a real monster, even if he was killed by the monster, it was not real death, but he was also terrified in his heart. Just when the monster's head with spikes was about to fall on the mecha, Yejuju had already stretched out his hands to support himself on the ground, and then bounced up with his waist. The mecha suddenly stopped, and his feet kicked up hard. With a muffled sound of bang, the monster's chin was kicked hard by the mecha's legs. Like humans, the monster's chin is also one of the most vulnerable parts of the body. Ah! A long sound came out of the monster's mouth, and its head suddenly tilted back, and the monster's body, which was more than 90 meters long, tilted back to the side. Then, Yejuju controlled the mecha, half knelt on the ground, raised his hand and pulled out a large sword flashing with cold light, stood up and fiercely stabbed the monster's throat, which was exposed because of the high head. With a sound of puchi, the long sword was deeply inserted into the monster's throat without any hindrance. The monster howled in pain. Yejuju was not done yet. He held the hilt of the sword that had penetrated the monster's throat with both hands and slashed it to the right. A series of puff sounds were heard, and the monster's neck was fiercely cut by the long sword, splashing a large amount of blue blood, pouring down to the ground. Knowing that the monster's blood had a strong corrosive ability, Yejuju had already dodged and retreated when he cut the monster's neck. While retreating, Yejuju was still worried and raised his hand to launch the plasma cannon in his hand. Buzz! After a period of charging, a plasma shell burst out from his hand with a bang. With a boom, it accurately hit the monster's cut neck. Then, the neck of the monster could no longer bear the head of the monster, and it broke apart. In the splash of a large amount of blue blood, it slowly fell from the neck and hit the ground heavily. At this point, the monster was completely killed by Yejuju. Voila! The students who watched the battle through the video outside the simulation room burst into warm applause. Not only that, even the staff who watched the whole battle process next door all applauded for this wonderful battle. Ma Zi was stunned for a while before reacting. Although he did not applaud the battle between the two, the light of surprise in his eyes kept flashing. Nathan, who was also in the mecha, was shocked throughout the whole process, as if he had not recovered from the battle just now. To be honest, in the previous simulation battles, he and his partners had easily killed monsters. But they were only level 3 monsters, and although he had killed many level 4 monsters like this, he had never killed them so easily. What made him feel the most incredible was that he obviously did not cooperate with Yejuju. Then how did Yejuju complete the control of the mecha and perform the previous fighting moves by himself? Is it true that the mecha driven by 2 people is not a problem for Yejuju with or without the cooperation of others? He didn't know that after Yejuju got on the machine, he completely controlled the mecha with his strong mental power. In other words, with or without Nathan's help or cooperation, Yejuju can independently complete the process of driving the mecha to fight. And his strong physical fitness can also support him to complete those mecha fighting moves that ordinary people cannot complete. After the simulated battle, Yejuju took off the helmet on his head calmly as if nothing had happened, smiled at Nathan who was still in shock, and walked out of the simulation room. When he walked out of the door, all the students surrounded him, applauding Yejuju generously, and looking at Yejuju with admiration in their eyes. He shouted in a random manner. "Yeah, good job. Awesome, yeah." In the simulation room, Nathan finally came to his senses. Looking at Yejuju surrounded by students outside the simulation room, Nathan smiled bitterly, took off his helmet, and slowly walked out of the simulation room. Just then, the door of the next room opened, revealing the figure of Ma Zi. Seeing the students surrounding Yejuju, Ma Zi said, "Okay, today's simulation training is over, All students return to the dormitory. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan Chi. Chapter 308. After hearing Maze's words, all the students stopped applauding. Many students with naughty and lively personalities lowered their heads and stuck out their tongues before leaving the simulation training room surrounded by Yejuju. After seeing all the students leave, Maze called out to Nathan, who looked disappointed, and said, "Nathan, come with me to the general's office. We want to learn something from you." Hearing this, Nathan knew that Maze wanted to know Yejuju's performance in the simulated battle just now. He immediately agreed and followed Maze with a complicated look on his face, heading towards General Kwan's office. In General Kwan's office, Nathan said seriously, "General Kwan, Maze, I don't know what to say, anyway. In the simulated battle just now, I had never driven or controlled a mecha. All actions were done by Ya alone." After finishing speaking, Nathan continued with a look of disbelief. "General Kwan, Maze, this kind of situation has never happened in simulations or actual combat. Do you two know why this is?" Hearing this, Maze nodded and said, "It's no wonder, I probably know why." After saying that, Maze's expression became extremely serious. He looked at General Kwan and Nathan and said, "Only me and the staff in the observation room know about this matter. I hope you will keep it confidential." After finishing speaking, Maze took a deep breath and said, "Yes, mental power is an unprecedented 310, more than twice that of the best hunter-warrior in the past. I think this is why Yaneng can control the mecha alone without relying on the help of his teammates." His. Nathan and General Kwan both gasped. After a while, General Kwan said, "It seems that we still underestimated Yes' ability." After saying that, General Kwan's face became serious and he said to Nathan, "Nathan, it's enough that you know this. You can go back and rest first." Nathan was stunned when he heard this, but he immediately reacted, said yes and saluted the two of them, then turned and left the office. After Nathan left, General Kwan looked at Maze and said seriously, "Maze, what do you think? Do you really want Ye to try to pilot that mecha?" "Yeah. That's what I thought. After so many years, a person finally appeared who was mentally strong enough to pilot that mecha alone. We can't let him become a mediocre one." Hearing this, Maze said firmly. General Kwan did not agree immediately, but solemnly stretched out his hand and tapped crisply on the desk. As the tapping movements became faster and faster, with the sound of tick, 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 General Kwan finally made a decision, looked at Maze and said, "Okay. I approve. Tomorrow you take Ye and head to the Los Angeles base. If you can. Rightward arrow. I mean, if Ye can fly that mecha alone, you don't have to come back for the time being. You'll let me know when Ye gets used to that mecha. I will send a helicopter transport over and bring the mecha back to the base." "Okay, General." Hearing this, Maze's voice became excited when he answered. He turned around and walked out of the office, returning to his room with brisk steps. And Yejuju didn't know it yet, but with his dazzling performance before and after, he had completely caught the eyes of General Kwan and Maze, and he was about to go to the Los Angeles base to pilot his first mecha that was unique to him. The next day, the students had just finished washing up when they saw Maze coming to the dormitory. When everyone was guessing what Maze was doing, they saw Maze calling Yejuju out alone. Soon after, Yejuju came back to pack his luggage with a puzzled look on his face. Wang Jinhai had the best relationship with Yejuju. When he saw this, he thought that Yejuju had been kicked out of the base by the hunter school. He hurriedly came to Yejuju and asked, "Yeah, why does Instructor Maze want you to pack your luggage?" Hearing this, Yejuju kept packing his luggage and said, "Instructor Maze asked me to pack my bags and go to the base in Los Angeles with him for a while." Wang Jinhai asked in surprise, then reacted and asked. Los Angeles base, isn't it closed? What are you doing there? Yejuju had already put the luggage into the bag, held it in his hand and shrugged, saying. Who knows? Maybe, there might be something left there. After speaking, Yejuju walked out of the dormitory with the bag in hand and said to Wang Jinhai and all the students. Okay, my friends, I will leave for a while. You should also train hard. I hope that when I come back, you will all become qualified mecha pilots. Come on. After saying that, Yejuju turned around and walked out of the dormitory without hesitation, and together with Maisie who was waiting outside the door, they left the base and boarded a plane to fly to the United States. On the plane, Maisie looked at Yejuju with interest. Seeing Yejuju sitting quietly on his mount after getting on the plane, he asked. Yeah, don't you want to say something? For example. Ask me, what is the purpose of going to Los Angeles this time? Not interested. As long as I know that I am still a member of the Hunter School, that's it. The rest doesn't matter. Yejuju had no intention of getting to the bottom of it. After speaking, in order to prevent Maisie from continuing to talk, Yejuju simply closed his eyes and began to rest his mind. Ma Zi was speechless by Yejuju's calmness, but he was optimistic about Yejuju's calmness at such a young age. He was more and more confident that Yejuju could drive the mecha alone. However, since Yejuju didn't want to say anything, Ma Zi kept silent and closed his eyes to take a nap quietly. After a few hours of flying, the two finally arrived at the original Mecha Hunter base in Los Angeles. After getting off the plane and looking at the base with almost no people in front of him, Yejuju couldn't help but recall the glorious past of Pacific Rim No. 1 Middle School, which was one of the 8 major bases of mankind to fight against monster invasions. In fact, although this base has been closed, there are still people staying here. When Yejuju and the others got off the plane, the person in charge hurried out to greet them. Under the leadership of the person in charge, the few people entered the base and came to a large warehouse that looked almost abandoned. The warehouse door opened, and several people filed in. As the lights in the warehouse were turned on, Yejuju saw a mecha that was about 60 meters tall, standing quietly in the corner. This mecha looked very old, and it was covered with dust, and it was almost impossible to see its original appearance. But even so, from its general outline, it can be roughly seen that this mecha once looked mighty. And Yejuju saw at a glance that this mecha was very similar to the dangerous Wanderer in Pacific Rim 1. Looking at the power device on his chest, it was obviously the nuclear-powered drive device equipped by the earliest mecha. Digression. Thanks, book friend 1306261532150988 for 2 consecutive January tickets, Yorong Nida for the support of February tickets. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, De Chuanqi. Chapter 309. Just when Yejuju looked up at the mecha, Ma Zi whispered in Yejuju's ear. How is it, yeah? Want to try driving this mecha? This is the only mecha among the earliest batch of single-piloted mechas that has not been dismantled or destroyed. I think, with your mental strength, you can definitely drive it alone. Hearing this, Yejuju looked back at Ma Zi in surprise, but he was inexplicably excited. A thought came to his mind. Could it be? Is this the special reward given to me in the mission? Thinking of this, Yejuju suppressed his excitement and nodded to Ma Zi, saying. Well, I think I am willing to drive such a mecha. Instructor Ma Zi, can I go up and try it? Aha! I knew you would be willing. But you can't rush to get on the machine now. You have to wait for the staff to pour fuel into the mecha and clean it up before you can get on the mecha and try to drive it. Hearing this, although Yejuju felt a little regretful, he nodded in understanding, indicating that he was not in a hurry. However, Ma Zi was more anxious than Yejuju, and hurriedly asked the personnel left behind at the base to clean the mecha and add fuel to the power room of the mecha. Naturally, Yejuju did not act as a hands-off shopkeeper. He watched the staff busy on the side, put down the luggage bag in his hand, and took the tools to help clean the mecha. The cleaning work is not easy. After all, a mecha with a height of more than 60 meters and nearly 70 meters cannot be cleaned in a short time. However, although the progress of cleaning was slow, Yejuju also roughly understood some of the situation of this mecha. Just as Ma Zi said, because it was the earliest single-person mecha, compared to the third-generation Dangerous Wanderer in Pacific Rim 1, this mecha was more than a year earlier. And this single-person mecha, in terms of defense and firepower, is not at all like the Dangerous Wanderer in Pacific Rim 1. What Yejuju admired most was that single-person mecha driving was not as troublesome as double-person driving, and it was relatively simple to make neural connections. In a word, as long as your mental strength can withstand it, the mecha is an extension of your body. As long as you have super physical fitness, you can even make the mecha do the same movements as you usually do. This is the strength of the single-person mecha, and also his sadness. Because there are only a few outstanding people with high mental strength among humans, and when they can't bear it, or even get sick or die, this mecha can only be abandoned by people. A few hours later, when the mecha was cleaned and refueled, the mecha presented to everyone looked very majestic. I. The head is a separate operating cabin, the chest is a 2.9 nuclear-powered turbine engine with a built-in reactor. The whole body is made of steel used for aircraft carriers, except for the mechanism of the connecting parts. It is almost a whole piece of steel, so that this mecha is obviously 20 meters shorter than the later generations of mecha, but its weight still reaches 1993 tons, which can be said to be a heavyweight mecha. Its weapon system, like the Wanderer, can open both hands to become a plasma cannon, firing shotgun-charged ion particles, which can penetrate the monster's body and burn its inside. There is a hidden ion dagger from the calf to the knee, and the two daggers can be twisted together to become a nearly 10-meter-long double-headed knife stick, which is also powerful. At least it can easily chop off the head of a level 3 monster. As for the 4th and 5th level, and even the super monsters that were finally combined, Yejuju was not sure that he could cut them. In addition, there is a small rocket slot on each of the left and right shoulders of the mecha, which can launch 20 small rockets to attack the target. There is also a vortex railgun on the chest, which can launch powerful railgun shells to attack the target. In general, the performance of this mecha is very good, and Yejuju is also confident that he can drive this mecha well and play a decisive role in future battles. Just when Yejuju was satisfied with the mecha, he didn't expect that Ma Zi was more anxious than him, urging Yejuju to enter the mecha and start the mecha to try to see if he could drive this mecha normally. Yejuju naturally would not refuse, and got up and walked into the special armor room and put on the special armor. Looking at Yejuju in a tight black armor, holding a helmet in his arms and walking towards him, Ma Zi had a moment of trance, as if he saw those mecha hunter warriors who had sacrificed, walking towards him again. Her eyes became wet. If she hadn't been so stubborn, tears would have flowed down. After Yejuju walked to her side and called her name, Ma Zi came to her senses and hurriedly covered up. Yeah, remember, the mecha you are about to drive is the honorary mecha used by the first batch of mecha hunter warriors. This mecha has killed 9 monsters. It is a well-deserved mecha warrior. And its name is called Death Warrior. It means, the unparalleled warrior who brings death to monsters. I hope you don't disgrace its name. Now, you can get on the plane. Go. Go and reproduce its former glory. Yejuju was still confused when he heard this, and was speechless about the name of the mecha. Why did he have to call it Death Warrior? It was so unfashionable. Thinking so, Yejuju nodded heavily and walked towards the cockpit of the mecha. Entering the cockpit and closing the door, the entire space was completely closed. People outside could not see anything inside. At most, they could see some data of the mecha and the driver's situation through the built-in system of the mecha. When Yejuju put the helmet on his head, the system prompt sounded as expected. Congratulations to the host for completing the follow-up tasks. Becoming the most outstanding student among the students of the same period, you will get the opportunity to drive a mecha alone, and you will be rewarded with 10,000 experience points and a special reward. Special rewards are: the host can choose the current mecha as the host's second mount. Tip: the mount can match the host's armor. In addition to its own abilities, it can also obtain the armor's functional extension. For example, when the host wears the armor and drives the mecha, he can use the mecha to perform ice magic abilities. Tip: the mecha cannot fly, and cannot launch its own electromagnetic pulses, energy cannons, impact beams and other attack methods. Current armor data is: mecha mount, to be named. Height, 68 meters. Weight, 7,998 tons. Model, first generation single pilot machine. Weapons and equipment: ion double blades, vortex railguns, plasma cannons, small rocket slots, ice magic. Power center, nuclear power turbine drive. After listening to the introduction of the system, Yejuju was excited. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan. Chapter 310. He couldn't wait to put the armor on his body into the garage, and put it on with a thought. Carrot dash dot. Dot dash dot. Dot carrot dash. Then, Yejuju stepped onto the mecha operating platform. When he stood with his feet on the operating platform, the mecha seemed to be alive, and it established an inexplicable connection with Yejuju. This feeling was amazing. Although the mecha was considered a dead thing, Yejuju seemed to feel the mecha's joyful mood. It seems that at this moment, the mecha has become one with himself. As long as he makes any action, the mecha can do it perfectly. Of course, this is just a feeling. To make the mecha reach the point where it can use its arms and fingers, Yejuju and the mecha need to work together to achieve this. With excitement, he listened to Maisie in the cockpit informing him through the built-in communication device that everything was normal and nerve connections could be made. Yejuju would not tell Maisie that he had established a deeper soul consciousness connection with the mecha, so he had no choice but to let the mount carry out the spiritual connection in the usual way. The connection information was transmitted to the observation room. Under Maisie's excited gaze, Yejuju passed the memory recall time in just a few seconds and successfully connected with the mecha's spirit. Then, Yejuju slowly raised his hands, making one hand into a fist and the other into a palm, making a fist-holding gesture. There was a clang sound when the fists and palms came together. Through the observation glass window, Maisie could clearly see the mecha making a seemingly simple action of clasping fists under Yejuju's control, and his breathing suddenly became rapid. Then, Yejuju stepped down from the pedestal step by step, slowly speeding up his pace and walked out of the garage door. While walking, Yejuju gradually began to adapt to the mecha, from walking slowly to walking quickly. After walking out of the warehouse door, Yejuju had completely adapted to the mecha and started running at a trot. The base is independent on the edge of the beach. Because of the existence of the base, there is no human habitation at all. Yejuju was no longer afraid that the mecha would accidentally injure people, and he freely controlled the mecha to run along the coast. Yes, it's the handling, not the driving. Compared to driving, the control is much more advanced. After running for more than 20 kilometers, Yejuju controlled the mecha and stood on the beach. Waves of waves surged up under the feet, washing against the solace of the mecha's feet. Looking up at the afterglow of the setting sun, Yejuju controlled the mecha and slowly squatted down. Yes. Just half squat. Yejuju controlled the mecha and squatted down horse step. Feeling the sense of gravity coming from his legs, Yejuju breathed a sigh of relief, then raised his hands, placed them on his chest one after another, and slowly performed Tai Chi with one move after another. Haha! Unexpectedly, Yejuju's unintentional move accelerated the compatibility between himself and the mecha. It's perfect for mecha to do Tai Chi. Because of the unfamiliarity between the two, if Yejuju asked the mecha to perform difficult fighting moves or powerful punches right from the start, the mecha might not be able to complete it. But Tai Chi is different. He almost stays in place, waving his hands, raising his legs and turning his body, which is very suitable for Yejuju, who has just established a conscious connection with the mecha, to perfectly control the mecha. Yejuju also gradually adapted to the huge body of the mecha during the boxing process. He felt that it wouldn't take long before he could completely control this body and make any movements he wanted. 2. Since Yejuju can easily control the combined King Kong General, this 68-meter tall mecha will naturally have no difficulty. Yejuju was doing Tai Chi here, and Meza from the base also drove the staff to the beach in a car. When a few people got out of the car and saw Yejuju driving a mecha and performing strange and slow punches, several workers who didn't understand couldn't help but exclaimed in surprise. Ah! What is he doing? Can this mecha actually perform such difficult actions? How incredible! Meza was also shocked. Although she was from Fuzhang, she was familiar with Chinese martial arts. She recognized Yejuju's Tai Chi skills at a glance. But what shocked her was that Yejuju was able to control this mecha so freely in such a short period of time. It was such a surprise to her. You know, driving a mecha to fight is not that easy. Including those particularly excellent pilots, they are nothing more than making some simple and easy fighting moves. I want to be like Yejuju, who can control the mecha as he pleases. Hee. Just think about it and forget it. Not to mention, how could Yejuju perform such meticulous and slow punches while driving a mecha? This simply subverted her understanding of mechas. After Yejuju performed Tai Chi 3 times in a row as if there was no one around, he then performed Wing Chun, Beiji Quan, and finally performed various difficult fighting moves. Then, he took out the ion knife between his legs and performed the knife technique again. Seeing Yejuju's fancy movements, everyone opened their mouths speechlessly, leaving only a hissing sound. Among these staff members, who has never seen hunters piloting mechas, but has never seen someone like Yejuju, who pilots mechas as if they were human beings. This is not over yet. Yejuju was so excited that he put away his 2 swords and rushed to the stone stairs on the beach. When he rushed to the stairs, Yejuju raised his foot and kicked hard. With a bang, the stairs made of huge stones were kicked into pieces by Yejuju. Without waiting for the broken stones and dust to fall to the ground, Yejuju rushed up the stairs and came to a huge stone tablet that weighed at least dozens of tons. He threw a flat hook and hit the boulder heavily. A loud bang, boom sounded, and the boulder could not withstand the force of the punch. It first broke into several pieces at the place where the fist was punched. Then it flew out in all directions, and even the base could not withstand the force of the punch and fell backwards. Yejuju was very satisfied with the force of this punch. Although the monster's body is thick and tough, and its defense is amazing, and it weighs thousands of tons at any time, it is still a mortal body that cannot be truly invulnerable, especially the head and other vulnerable parts. Yejuju felt that as long as his iron fist hit the monster's chin, throat, eyes, and other vital parts, the monster would be seriously injured if not killed. Even if it is not seriously injured, it will be confused for a moment. With this time, Yejuju can easily kill monsters below level 5 with the mecha's ion double swords, or the ice arrows, ice cones, or double swords condensed by his own ice magic. Just when Yejuju was proud, Ma Zi's voice came from the headset. Okay, yeah. If you want to experiment with the mecha, You don't have to use these public finances for experiments. There are many solid things and buildings in the base for you to use. It's too late today, let's drive the mecha back to the base first. After a night's rest, start the specific test tomorrow. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan-chi. Chapter 311. Hearing this, Yejeju couldn't help but blush, hurriedly stopped his movements, turned around and walked towards the base. This time, Yejeju did not run again, but slowly walked towards the base step by step. Returning to the base and parking the mecha at its original location, Yejeju quickly put away the armor, put on the armor from the base, and walked out of the cockpit holding the helmet. He saw Mesa standing outside with a dark face, waiting for him. Seeing this, Yejeju shrugged and said sheepishly, "I'm really sorry. It's my first time to actually pilot such a tall mecha. I'm a little too excited." After hearing this, Mesa's face looked a little better, but he remembered something and asked with concern. "Yeah, did you feel any discomfort while driving the Death Warrior? For example, does your head feel swollen, painful, and dizzy, or are there any other discomforts?" "No." Yejeju naturally knew what Mesa was worried about and explained. "I don't have any bad feelings, on the contrary. I feel good like. It's like this mecha was specially left for me to pilot. To be honest, the feeling of piloting this kind of mecha and using your fingers like an arm is really great." Hearing this, Mesa also became happy. She was really happy that she would have such a powerful mecha hunter like Yejeju when monsters invaded in the future. After a night's rest, Mesa formulated a strict training plan for Yejeju. In the morning, Yejeju will enter the simulation training room and fight various known level 3 to 4 monsters to accumulate experience in fighting monsters. In the afternoon, Yejeju got on the machine to adapt to the mecha and did various imaginary combat contingency operations. Mesa even discussed with the staff what weapons and equipment could be added to the mecha under the current conditions. In fact, according to Yejeju's idea, there is no need to add any weapons and equipment to the mecha. To be honest, what Yejeju is best at and uses most is melee combat and long-range shooting. But because of the particularity of this world, long-range weapons such as bows and arrows are actually not of much use. The key is, what kind of arrows can kill such a huge monster? And what troubled Yejeju's head the most was, what kind of nice and domineering name should he give to the mecha? After much deliberation, Yejeju gave up. Because he is a waste of naming, so he might as well just use the name given to this mecha in this world and call it like this for now. He can just give the mecha a name when he thinks of it one day. After training like this for a few days, Mesa suddenly received a call and hurriedly left the base. She even ignored Yejeju's training, leaving Yejeju a little confused. Then thinking about it, Yejeju wondered, has the plot already begun? Thinking of the play, the protagonist Jack Pentecost tracked Amara to an abandoned warehouse and was subsequently captured by the chasing police and SWAT teams. Yejeju understood. Immediately he realized that he would not be in this world for long. According to the development of the plot, it was not long after Jack Pentecost was forced to join the base. The human trader Newt Gisela will use Shaolin's Shaw Industrial Group to create drone armor controlled by the monster's brain, open the wormhole to release the monster, and simultaneously destroy the 3 mechas in the Magnolia base. Later, in order to prevent the Earth from becoming the Death Star, Jack led the students to intercept and kill the monsters at the foot of Mount Fuji in Tokyo. Thinking of this, Yejeju threw these thoughts out of his mind, got on the mecha again and started training seriously. It wasn't that Yejeju didn't have the confidence to deal with those monsters, but that he was just idle. Of course, he was training on the machine so that he could control the mecha more flexibly. In fact, when Yejeju came to this world, he also thought, how about exposing Newt's tricks before he completely turns dark? But after thinking about it carefully, Yejeju gave up this idea. What did he come to this world to do? They are on a mission to kill monsters and save the world. Before Newt releases these monsters into the earth, where can he kill monsters to earn experience and gain benefits? Not to mention, Newt is a celebrity after all and is a consultant to the Shaw Group. As for Yejuju, a boy who is only 16 years old, who would believe him? Not to mention, it would be really bad if Newt could not be found out and put on guard, causing more trouble. With these thoughts in mind, the day passed like this, and Mesa did not return to the base until the afternoon of the next day. Seeing Mesa's expression of relief and having his wish come true, Yejuju knew that he had guessed right. Needless to say, Mesa has already sent Jack and AMA to the Magnolia base, and the plot of Ring 2 has officially begun. In the following days, Yejuju trained with peace of mind every day, and his control of the mecha reached the point where he could control it with just one thought. This is many times better than other mecha hunters who have to use their own movements to drive mechas. Time passed by in a blink of an eye for more than half a month. On this day, Mesa found Yejuju, who was undergoing simulation training, and informed Yejuju that he had a mission to go out. Yejuju suddenly realized that the task that Ma Zi mentioned must be to let him participate in the security work of the Sydney summit. Thinking of this, Yejuju couldn't help but get excited. Is it finally time to fight in real combat? So excited. He remembered that it was at the summit that the villain mecha Furious Obsidian in the play appeared at this time. It was also at the summit that the helicopter that Ma Zi was riding was blown up by a missile from Furious Obsidian. While Yejuju was thinking about the plot, he heard Ma Zi shouting in his ear. "Wake up, Ye! What's wrong with you? Didn't you hear me?" "Ah. Oh. I heard it, I'll go get ready now." After that, Yejuju bypassed Ma Zi, hurried into the locker room, and put on his armor. Of course, this was just a show for Ma Zi to see. In fact, after he got on the plane, he would only wear his own exclusive armor. Seeing Yejuju hurriedly changing his armor and climbing into the cockpit of the mecha, Ma Zi suddenly had an illusion. Did he have too much hope in Ye? Can such a young boy really take on such an important task? But when he turned around and thought about it, he was relieved and let him go. After all, this was General Quan's request. What else can he say? Just do it. Besides, don't his younger brothers Jack and Nathan drive the Avenged Wanderer and watch him from the side? Thinking of this, Ma Zi was relieved and waited for Yejuju to drive the mecha out of the warehouse.